How can I tell if I'm in labor? I'm Kalaya, and I'm a holistic doula, and I work with a lot of mamas. And towards the end of their pregnancy, I get the same question very often. And a lot of mamas end up going to the hospital too soon and too early, which can be very frustrating. A lot of mamas know of are Braxton Hicks and periodontal labor, and practice labor is very, very common for a mom who's going into labor naturally without being induced. That's my baby Noah. She's 8 months old. And so, what are the biggest signs? How do you actually know if you're in labor or just practice labor? Practice labor on Braxton Hicks usually start around the 34, 35 week mark. Some mamas experience it earlier on. They're very normal. What we call practice labor is real contractions, but it's just your body's practicing for the real deal. And so how can you tell if it's actual labor once you start getting closer and those Braxton Hicks become more like a real contraction? There are two big signs to tell if you're in actual labor. First, if you are 36 weeks or earlier, and if there is a lot of bleeding, then I would call your midwife or go to the hospital to make sure everything is okay. A lot of bleeding can be cause for concern, so you definitely want to get it checked out if you are bleeding a lot. The cervix, when the cervix is ripening though, light bleeding, very light, pink spotting type of bleeding is very normal, and even mucus coming out, or your mucus plug. So even if you lose your mucus plug, that doesn't necessarily mean that you're in labor, but it does indicate that labor is close, whether that's hours, days, or even a couple weeks ahead. It is still close and nearing. The bloody show is actually a closer way to know, a bigger indicator to know that labor is even closer. Usually bloody show we see within a couple days is when labor will kick in. Once you start having contractions, how do you know if it's the real deal? The two ways to know that you're actually in labor is time and strength of contractions. So if they're getting closer together and if they're also getting stronger on top of it. So if you've been having contractions for a couple hours and they're getting stronger and closer together. If you're having contractions and here and there and it's been a couple of hours, but then they go away or they diminish or become less frequent, then it is probably just practice labor and not active labor. Also, your water breaking doesn't indicate that you are in labor. It does indicate that it is time to call your midwife and to let them know, because now that the baby is not surrounded by the amniotic fluid, you do want to let them know. You kind of start a clock once your water breaks, just so you don't risk infection or anything. So just in case you don't actually go into labor, there is kind of a stepping stone of, okay, we need to maybe start helping our body get into labor on its own. So anytime that you have a bloody show, mucus plug, any bleeding that isn't just spotting or that is filling a pad, definitely let your midwife know or go to a hospital just to make sure everything's okay. And then also if your water breaks, doesn't mean that labor is coming that minute or even that day, but it means that everything is progressing. So these are all really beautiful signs that your body's doing what it needs to do to help labor come. But the biggest ways to know that you are in active labor is contractions, and contractions that are getting closer and closer together and getting stronger and stronger and stronger. And the best way to do that, also with any movement, if you go out for a walk and the contractions become less in the walk, then it is probably also practice labor. But if they're becoming more intense and they're becoming closer together, they were every 10 minutes and now they're every 7 minutes, and then you give it another hour and now they're every 5 minutes, it's time to call your midwife and your doula. Hopefully you already called your doula, so she can walk you through that just by the time that you've felt uncomfortable. I know the last couple weeks, actually the last month of pregnancy is very uncomfortable. And it is definitely prepping us for the birth and the postpartum period. I know a lot of mamas get frustrated and are ready to be done. Practice labor is very, very common, very normal, again, for mamas who aren't getting induced, who are going into labor on their own. It is very normal for the body to practice. And what you're feeling is a true contraction. They're usually not as intense as active labor, but you are feeling and getting ready. It's like kind of your body prepping like a light jog, getting ready for the marathon. So you are feeling a contraction. So it's very valid what you are feeling. However, just be patient with your body and allow your body to move through it, and use these other techniques that I teach to be able to surrender in these moments, because sometimes they can last a couple weeks of people say fake labor, even though it's real labor, of course, but it's practice labor. And of course, if you have any concern at all, or you're feeling like, man, these are really, really intense, definitely lean into that and still get a hold of your midwife anyways. There's not a such thing in pregnancy or with birth of being too safe or too cautious, and just asking your midwife to either have a checkup or just, is this normal? I know as a doula, I don't mind. And I know most doulas do not mind. We actually like to know more information. So just checking in that last month is totally fine. Hey, I'm having these contractions. Okay, hey, sounds good. If they get intense, call me, check in an hour, and we'll see where you're at. And then that way we can at least know, so if we need to prep and get ready to come to you. But you are not alone in the frustration of having practice labor and on and off labor before active labor starts. And so usually when you want to head to a hospital, or when you want your midwife to come to your house if you're having a home birth, is usually an active labor. I personally know a lot of mamas who will get really frustrated being turned away from the hospital because they're not in active labor yet. So in the stages of practice labor, it's the time to walk, to watch funny movies, to take baths. It's a time to relax as much as you can before the big marathon of birth. It's also a great way to practice the surrendering of what we're going to be doing in birth as well. So as frustrating as it might be, it's a great time to actually practice through the practice labor, to practice your breathing techniques, practice the movements, practice your positionings, and practice your breathing. And also what I teach is the elongating as well. And just practicing to be able to full surrender in that moment. And that will actually help you also be able to do the same in your birth. As most mamas know, birth is more of a mental thing than it is physical. 100% it is physical, but where we are in control is mentally. If this video resonates with you, or if you have any questions about birth or pregnancy, or even postpartum, my Instagram is linked below, and I love to have a community of mamas, and I am totally welcoming anybody to reach out and talk to me. And we will see you guys next time.